Hey, I'm Angel, founder of AI Flow app, where we help founders turn operational chaos into clean, scalable systems using AI. AI Flow is my podcast where I talk to early stage leaders about the real behind the scenes, what's working, what's breaking, and how they're using tech to move faster with clarity. Let's get into it. How have you been?
Good. So we had a team on site last week, and it was like my schedule just got completely hijacked. So, but it was great. It was really nice to see, especially like we all work from home,
Uh-huh.
and I can't go back into an office at this point. I'm pretty sure I'm feral. So it's nice to just get together in the same space every once in a while.
Where's on site?
It was in Tampa.
Okay. Where are you, where are you located?
I'm in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, so good weather. Well, I guess it's already
Yeah, yeah.
nice
I
weather.
mean, it was raining here when I left, and then when I got to Florida, it was sunny. So I'll take it.
That's nice.
Yeah,
That's nice. I used to go to Florida a lot when I lived in Michigan, so I get it.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
where Ohioans and
Yeah, Michiganders. Yeah.
Michiganders. That's like the spot to go down to
To
Florida. Different
Florida.
places in Florida though, because we can't mix, right?
True. True. Got the rivalry going on. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So, I guess like we can just like dive into like industry trends you're seeing, what your role is at Bates Group, and like talk about like what financial operational challenges you're seeing internally and, you know, next steps, things like that, if
Sure.
that sounds good.
Um, so do you have something to give like a background of sort of
Yeah,
who
yeah.
Bates
We
is
can
and
start
what
off
we
with
do?
your like your role
Okay.
at Bates.
Cool. So I'm a managing consultant at Bates,
Okay.
and I oversee part of our FinTech and banking team. So we serve both FinTechs and banks that are in the sort of convergence of FinTech and banking space. We also do money service businesses, all kinds of payments, funds flow, cards, everything. And so we're users of AI. We also are experts in reviewing AI and AI tools to make sure that they're fit for purpose for um, anti-money laundering, counter-terrorist financing, as well as just like general workflow and risk mitigation. So we see a lot of AI tools from different perspectives. So I'd say we evaluate them. However, internally, we are exploring the use of them to facilitate what we do. I'd say that's an area of opportunity for us that we're really looking into right now.
Okay. So you guys both work with clients using AI and also work internally,
Yep.
like to improve things using AI. Could you delve a little bit more into that? Both
Um,
sides?
yeah.
Yeah.
So on the use of AI, or sorry, the review of AI fit for purpose. So there's this concept in banking and risk management called model validation or model risk management, which basically says if you're going to use a tool that has any kind of decision making ability, or any kind of algorithm behind it, some sort of something that changes the outcome of something that you're doing, that if you're using it for important functions like counter-terrorist financing or anti-money laundering, you have to evaluate that tool. So you need to make sure that you know how it works, that it works, and that you can demonstrate that it's set up appropriately, the outcomes are what you would expect, that all of your data is flowing through the tool correctly. So, we spend a lot of time looking at AI tools in the industry to say, how are these tools built? Because not all AI is built, as you know, it's not built the same. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of buzzwords, and I think it's really easy for people who are purchasing tools to just go, oh my gosh, there's an AI and it's going to make my life better. It's going to make everything perfect and wonderful, not realizing that these AI tools they're built very, very differently. Some of them are great, some of them are not so great. So there's not a great framework out there for evaluating the efficacy of AI tools. I think that's something that's kind of been lacking in the industry. And that's one of the things that we've really been focusing on at Bates is how to create that framework, how to evaluate AI tools so that when we have let's say one of our clients says we are going to use this particular AI tool to help with our anti-money laundering transaction monitoring. We can actually evaluate it and say, yes, that tool is doing what it's supposed to be doing. the data that's, that tool is set up correctly so the data is flowing where it needs to, both input and output. And from a transformation perspective, make sure that the data is not being mapped into weird places or doing weird things. And then evaluating that the output of the tool is what we would have expected, when we were sort of deciding that this was a problem we wanted to solve. So does that, I don't know, I'm going to stop there before I kind of talk about the other use case you said.
So that makes sense. I was actually curious about like what, like you're developing a framework to evaluate AI. Like, could you talk about what your criteria is, what frameworks you're using, or if it's still in development? Like, what does that look like?
So I think it'll always be in development, and that's kind of the thing with AI is the pace of innovation has outpaced our ability to understand it, and that's kind of what makes AI tricky. It's also what makes AI wonderful, right? Because you don't have to sit there with an Excel spreadsheet and code, and I do pivot tables and all that kind of crazy stuff. It's like, oh, I've got this tool that I can interact with in a really natural way. I can go out to ChatGPT and I can say, give me a rule for transaction monitoring that does this, this, and this. Whereas before we would have to do a lot of analysis. But at the same time, we've got all that innovation. How do I know that it's working? Well, these things are not as tangible as they were in the past. We can't see A plus B equals C. We can only say these inputs here went in, something happened in the middle, and then it spat out C. So what we're really thinking about from a risk perspective is how do we evaluate that the inputs were correct and the output was correct, and then making kind of a mathematical assumption to say, all right, whatever's happening in here that we really can't see, that is functioning the way that it should. So that's really the way that we're approaching the problem, or I guess the challenge is not really a problem.
Yeah.
It is different than we've had to do it in the past, for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I noticed that chat is great, like ChatGPT, but it's like not always correct either.
Right. And
So
I
it's
think
like,
everyone, a lot of people, they're like, oh, well, I saw this fact, it's on ChatGPT. Well, if your inputs are incorrect, your output's going to be incorrect. And how do you have the right checks and balances when, like, if I'm making a meme on ChatGPT, I don't care. I'll just make the meme again. But if I'm doing something really, really important, um,
yeah.
using an AI to tell me which stock should I buy, I feel like it's, we have to have some sort of framework for evaluating that the inputs were correct and the output is correct.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like I know AI is like been like a big disruptor in literally every industry. But I guess like if it's AI, it's AI, but like if there's like any other disruptors or like things that are changing in your industry that like or in like your clients' industries, like what does that look like and like how do you guys navigate that?
So my industry's pretty much been disrupted since I've been in it. We've been going through these
Yeah.
major disruption events, and in fact, hearing a lot of experts talk about, in particular, the technologies, the pace of change has really just escalated, and so the disruption events, which used to occur 10 to 20 years apart, are now happening every 1 to 2 years as technology changes. And banking in particular is an industry that it doesn't want to change. It is built both from a foundational but also a regulatory perspective that it is intentionally slow to change. Because can you imagine if something happens with banking and we've got a major disruption event and our banking infrastructure falls apart? Like, it's a really critical function that is slow on purpose, and I think it frustrates a lot of people. COVID was a huge disruption event for pretty much all of us, right? But it was a great example of something that we had a leap forward in innovation because of the circumstances. So you saw things like touchless payments really coming into play. You saw the way that money was moving fundamentally changed because people were not moving. They were sitting in their houses. So we had to very quickly adapt on multiple areas on the banking side, I think faster than I've ever had to in my career to say, are the controls working? We saw a lot of fraud that we suddenly hadn't seen before. And so that was, I think it was a perfect inflection point for both. We got COVID happening with the disruption, and then at the same time we had this huge eruption in AI. I think it was a wonderful convergence, and now we're sort of kind of like backing up. We're like, okay, so we saw this happen 5 years ago, if you can believe that. Saw this happen 5 years
It's
ago.
crazy.
We actually understand what happened. So yeah, it's been wild the last 5 years for sure.
With the increases in fraud, like how are you guys handling that?
So I think fraud is one of the best applications of AI, because it can learn, and it can alert much faster than a person can. Because with fraud, we really need to be at the beginning of a transaction to stop it before it's happened. If fraud happens, the likelihood of us actually getting those funds back and making that customer whole, it doesn't happen. Once fraud happens, that money's gone. And we joke about, we don't joke, but people sending money to Nigerian princes that suddenly show up, and that is a real thing. I have actually seen that happen. But like a disruption event like COVID, suddenly those Nigerian princes are, hey, we're a doctor, and we need money to fund this, or we need to do these things. And so AI is a perfect example of kind of looking at the patterns that we have historically and applying them in a new lens to say, hey, this kind of looks like this thing over here. You might want to go look at it. So I think that that's one of the areas that we've seen, I think, the best application of AI.
It's like with all these changes, are there any operational challenges that teams, like maybe your teams or your client teams, like are running into that maybe weren't quite as common pre-COVID or like a few years back?
I think that the biggest challenge is the sheer volume of things. So we're just seeing, whereas before, I mentioned with the fraud stuff and transaction monitoring, we're sort of seeing these established patterns and we know how to handle them. Now we're just seeing so many things. So for example, my team will do independent reviews for fintechs and banks, which means we go in and we say, okay, are they doing what they need to do from a regulatory perspective to combat money laundering, terrorist financing, comply with all of those regulations? Are they using best practices? Do they have the right policies and procedures? Well, before it was it was a pretty set in stone, hey, we're looking at this, here's the output, here's what we're doing. Now we go into these institutions, and just the sheer volume is just crazy. They've got more payment methods available. They've got more like a lot of our fintechs. They've just got more technology than they ever had in the past. So when we go into these institutions, the sheer volume of things we are dealing with is just, it's crazy. And then so from a management perspective, we look at that and we say, well, we don't want to quadruple the size of this independent review because that's very, very costly for these banks and fintechs. How can we leverage best practices and technology like AI to facilitate the work that we're doing? So whereas before we might have had to go through 30 different policies and procedures, we're still looking at those policies and procedures, but maybe we're looking at tools that can facilitate us moving through them faster, us maybe taking insights from these policies and procedures and automatically putting them into a report for us, so that instead of us sitting there typing, we can actually do the real work, which is analyzing. So we're really
Yeah.
focusing on those opportunities for AI to do a lot of the admin and structural work for us, while still
Mhm.
allowing us to do the analysis, because that's what we're being paid for at the end of the day.
Yeah. So are you saying that like more for your internal work or for your client work?
So it would be for our internal work. So we're consultants, so our internal work,
Yeah.
that is our client work.
Okay. I guess like your internal workflows, that's the same thing as like,
Yeah, so
okay.
like we would have the same process if we go into 5 different banks and we're doing an independent review or an AML risk assessment, or just a general project. We have the same process for those same 5. So it's grabbing information, synthesizing information, analyzing information. We are really looking for tools right now that facilitate that particular workflow.
Okay. Are you finding that there are a lot of options out there right now for these kinds of tools, or is it kind of like still the beginning of the industry, like early stages?
There's it seems like every week there's a new tool that comes out, but I am seeing
Yeah.
these tools are picking one piece of the equation. So they're going after, synthesizing documents and pulling them out using an LLM to convert them into something actionable. But we're finding that, and I think this is actually my preference, so I don't want this to seem like a negative thing. In our industry, I'm really looking for customization. I don't want a workflow tool that's going to come in and say, you must do these 6 steps to get to here. I'm the expert. I need to be able to lay my process into an AI tool to be able to do all of the different things that they need to do. I've not seen yet a single tool that does that. And I will be honest, at this point in time, I don't want to see that. So I'm seeing a lot of tools that maybe they facilitate sort of a larger case management, and then I can do the inputs and then I can plug in additional AIs. But I love that customization aspect, and that's something that's really important to us to maintain.
Okay, so you're not finding a lot of customization in this industry right now, in the AI tool industry. More like, oh, here's a product. You have
Yeah,
to do
very
X, Y, Z to.
like this is for a very specific purpose, to look at what color the sky is today and then tell you what's going to be, like very, very specific purpose.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So, like, I know you guys are consultants, but like, do you have any specific processes that you're finding like tricky to scale if you can even scale, whether you have different clients or like what does that kind of look like?
I mean, I think we have the same challenges that we've always had around just organization of, all the way through a sales cycle. So from initial contact to completing
Yeah.
a work product and then sort of like back again. Those are things that we're still looking for areas of opportunity that we can improve. A lot, we've been looking at improving time management. So, how do we track time? How do we categorize time? Because in the consulting world, we bill for what we do. So it's really important to us that, number one, that we're efficient with our time, because we don't want to bill our clients for things that are unnecessary. But number two, that like we don't spend half our day inputting time. I think that if you ask my consultants on my team what their biggest pain point is like, I'm so sick of entering time. So we're looking
Like
for
billable hours?
opportunity. Yeah, the billable hours. They're like, I know I spent 2 hours doing this. Why do I have to go back and add this to 2 or 3 different places? So
Yeah.
those are just areas of opportunity. All the stuff kind of like around the work that we really want to do.
Okay. That makes sense. Is there any process that if you could like wave a magic wand for it to be like fixed tomorrow?
That's a great question. It's probably the billing time that I mentioned, but
Yeah.
also just general project management, I think is another one.
Project.
Project
Sorry?
management. So,
Oh, project management. Okay.
documenting where we are on a task and how long to
Yeah.
completion, what are the remaining tasks that need to be done, and making sure that that's available to other members of the team.
Okay. Do you use like a project management tool?
We do, yeah.
So in your like ideal world, you would want AI to do the project management for you.
Where appropriate, I think,
Okay.
because we have a lot of different moving parts. So it's not simply a Gantt chart in a project. Like it's not an Excel spreadsheet that says what is the task. There's multiple spokes of a project. So gathering
Hmm.
statuses, gathering inputs and outputs of a project, and pulling them into like a central place to say this is the status of an item across all of
Hmm.
the different things. That's something that there's definitely a lot of area of improvement. And, I think that AI could be a use case for that. Also, probably just better tracking. But that's an area of opportunity for us.
Okay, I see. So like looking to the next 6 to 12 months, what kind of internal improvements do you think you would love to have in place? Do you think is feasible to have in place? Like, where would you like to be, or where would Bates Group as a whole like to be?
I would love for my consultants and managing consultants to spend less time, um, documenting sort of the minutia of what we do and more time analyzing risk and being able to create product or create deliverables for our clients. So,
Hmm.
spending less time really on I'm going to update this spreadsheet. I'm going to go and do this task. I'm going to input this time, and really more time on what is the true risk of terrorist financing in this particular jurisdiction for this client. Like, that's meaningful work for us that we would love to be
Hmm.
able to peel away a lot of the admin work to get to more of that stuff.
Okay. Like how realistic, like how much of the admin do you think you can like kind of peel away by the next half year to a year?
I think it really depends on what tools we're able to implement.
Yeah.
And so where we input those, we don't want to implement tools that will ultimately make us less efficient, which can be the case when you're looking for solutions to these problems. Is like, we don't want
Hmm.
to solve this immediate problem today and cause a problem in the future where maybe we've exposed a privacy concern because we've got an AI or some type of system that has access to our information. So we're being cautious because of the industry and the clients that we serve, that
Yeah.
any impacts or any changes that we make, they need to be meaningful for us, but also safe, secure for our clients, and ultimately in their best interest, right? This isn't about us trying to make more money and trying to do all this stuff. This really is, we want whatever tools we implement to be in our clients' best interests.
Okay. How do you navigate that, the privacy concerns and things like that, especially because it's more sensitive in the banking industry versus like say like I don't know like the restaurant industry or like tech. Like it's a little bit different. Like how do you navigate that? Like I have an inkling because I used to work for a bank, but just curious how you guys are thinking about it or how you're thinking about it.
So it's a lot of InfoSec policy, which is always really fun to talk about, right? But it's making sure that whatever tools our teams are using are fit for use. Kind of like what we're doing for our clients, right? When we go out and we say, yes, you can use this AI, or this transaction monitoring platform, or this OFAC sanctions tool. We really do evaluate that if we're using a tool where we're putting our clients' data into that tool, that we can maintain that service level agreement that we have with them for keeping their data confidential. We also handle, or potentially handle, a lot of sensitive information, like people's information. So in
Yeah.
cases where there's the potential for there to ever be any kind of breach, we would rather not use a tool that we didn't feel confident in, than simply get short-term gains. So we really are, we're not only evaluating tools to say, is this effective? We're evaluating the tools that we would use to say, is this really the right thing? And it all comes down to from an InfoSec perspective.
Could you explain that a little bit more clearly?
Yeah. So making sure that we understand how the tools are working, where, how they're processing our data, what data
Okay.
is going where, right? Because in the U.S., a lot of you can't send data overseas for most institutions, especially for the banking industry. They really want to see that data stays in the U.S. But if we engage with a tool that sends that data to a server in Poland to process and then come back into the U.S., we've violated a lot of issues. So we have to make sure that we understand that full custody of the chain of custody for the data, even if an AI is in the mix. And then we also have to evaluate, and we do this through the process of third-party due diligence. So, making sure that in our contracts or what have you, with whatever tools we're engaging with, that there's the right confidentiality protections, and that we understand their cybersecurity, to the level that we would need to say, yes, we feel confident that by us using this tool, we are not creating a situation that's bad for our clients.
Okay. That makes sense.
It's super fun. Banking and AI is
Yeah.
there's a lot of restrictions. There's a huge area of opportunity, but one of the reasons why there's area for opportunity is because it's not a crowded space. It is very difficult to
Yeah.
get into this. So any type of tool that can get in and work with institutions, the sky's the limit, right? If you can kind of meet those minimum operating requirements.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Like I know like I used to work for like a big bank and it was slow.
Everything's locked down,
Like
right? Like you
yeah.
need approvals for everything, and it sucks, but there's a reason, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a reason. It just sucks because like we couldn't use ChatGPT at work for the longest time. We were like, oh, we're doing everything so manually right now. Like I feel like I had worked for a tech company before that and everything was just quick, quick, quick. And
Yeah,
I had gone to banking. I was like, oh, this is slow. Why is our
yeah.
tech so slow too? So I
There's
get it.
ways
Yeah.
to thread the needle too. If institutions want to engage with these technologies, just don't put sensitive data in ChatGPT, right? Um,
Yeah.
but then you have to trust your employees, and I know that banks don't want to. They have a lot of employees, so they don't necessarily want to trust that their entry level folks know to not put social security numbers in ChatGPT. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's fair.
it'll get better. I think that there's so much opportunity, and we're just seeing so many wonderful strides from regulators that I think that
Yeah.
it's going to get better.
It's just slow right now.
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be. We're engaging with brand new technology. It has to be slow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I
Thank
appreciate the
you.
time today, and yeah, let's keep chatting.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate your time
Okay.
as well. Happy to have you on the airflow as
All
always.
right.
All right.
Absolutely. You're very welcome.
Bye.
Bye.